He's not your typical freshman, like top 10 quarterback in the nation, grew up in a football family. His brother was a starting quarterback and did really well. The guy knows football. He learned the playbook even before he showed up on campus. He's going to be able to have enough things that I think make him serviceable.
Hello and welcome to the Aptive Podcast Studio. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds, alongside our OG and regular Tosh McIntosh. Tosh, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
So wanted to start off this episode just by saying thank you to our viewers. We're now close to 800 subscribers, which in the span of 8-9 months, to me was pretty unheard of coming into this. And so we appreciate you, the listeners, the viewers, heading over to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, liking, subscribing, hitting the bell to get notified. We also read your comments. I don't know if you do, Tosh. I actually go through all the comments and I read them. There have been some really good ones, some pretty hilarious. I actually remember when we were talking about you going bear hunting, and you made a good point, I think, during that episode. And so somebody commented and called you the bear hunter. Like, the bear hunter has a really good point, and then like added to your point.
Yeah.
We read all your comments and we appreciate you giving them and watching the show. Okay, Tosh, let's talk about fall camp, because that's been the story the last few weeks. And the biggest storyline of fall camp has been who is going to be the starting quarterback. And we've harped on, A-Rod and Kalani for, not having picked a starter yet. And it sounds like they're getting close. And it seems like a lot of local and national media outlets are pretty much saying it is Bear.
Yeah.
But I think they're basing that off of the comments that A-Rod made last week, which were that Bear was taking most first team reps, at least the day that the media was allowed to watch and ask questions. So what we do know is that it's Bear and Hillstead taking first and second team reps. And also from fans that went to the Saturday practice, they observed Bear was taking most first team reps and he looked better than McKay. So what's your take? Is it going to be Bear? Is he going to be ready?
I'd be shocked if it's not Bear. And so, yeah, I think that's where this train is headed, that it's going to be Bear Bachmeier. I mean, we're less than 2 weeks away from the first game. I would be surprised if they are not even today in Monday practice moving forward with Bear as the quarterback, start to get him into the game plan for game prep. Yeah, he's looked good enough. He offers enough other variables to a defense to try to stop. I think Bear will be the starting quarterback week one.
Yeah. So this, I'm going to call out Cougar Canuck 76 on Cougar Board, because he had a generational post, I thought. Phenomenal post. He says, and this is in relation to if you're in Provo, there was a fire last night just south of Y Mountain, actually on the same mountain, but just south of the Y on the mountain. And so he took a tweet, I think, of someone who posted a picture of the fire, and he said, "Does this mean Kalani has selected a new starting quarterback?" I think somebody replied and said something like, "Well, Pope's not here anymore, so yeah, that must be it."
People are quick, man. I'll give them credit.
I'm not witty enough, but I thought that was hilarious. So I agree. I think Bear, and I said this from the very beginning, I thought that Bear had the biggest upside on the team, and so it made the most sense to give him reps early on, especially with who they were playing in the first 3 weeks of the season. Give him those reps against Portland State, Stanford, and ECU. Like, you are likely going to win those games without him anyway, or with Hillstead or whoever's at quarterback anyway, so you might as well give him that practice. And so I'm totally on board. And I was listening to BYU Sports Nation last night with Jeremy and Spencer, and they agreed with you. They think that Bear is going to be announced. If not Bear, somebody is going to be announced probably by the end of the day today, because media availability is today for the team. And so we will likely hear, and today being Monday, we're recording on Monday, we will likely hear towards the end of the day on Monday that Bear will be the starting quarterback. So the question then is, outside of those 3 first games, Tosh, can a freshman quarterback actually succeed at BYU? I know we've seen it in the past with Zach Wilson. We saw it with Tanner Mangum. Tanner kind of fell off his later years, but his freshman year was pretty good, considering we were expecting a Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
And Tanner came in and performed admirably. Is that the type of success we can expect from Bear, or What's your confidence level going in with a freshman quarterback?
I think we can have a better win-loss season than those seasons you mentioned. Bear specifically, though, there's going to be some horrible decisions in games and some great decisions in games. That's just what you get with a freshman. But he's not your typical freshman, like top 10 quarterback in the nation. He grew up in a football family. His brother was a starting quarterback and did really well. All of his brothers, it seems like, played D1 football. The guy knows football. He learned the playbook even before he showed up on campus. And he's huge. Like, the guy wears number 47, and he's a dump truck and can run people over. Like, he's going to be able to have enough things that I think make him serviceable right as a true freshman. The biggest thing, though, is the surrounding cast around him. Like, if you watch the Colorado game last year, our quarterback position sucked.
Yeah.
We still blew out a great team in Colorado because we were great everywhere else. I expect that to be the recipe in a lot of games this season.
Yes, I agree. And I think this is actually a great position for Bear to come in, to be honest, as a freshman quarterback, because there's not a lot of pressure on him. He's got a running back that might be the best running back in the conference, top 3 at least. He's got receivers. He's got probably the best receiver in the conference, if not top 2. And then he's got his brother who's just as good as, like a Parker Kingston. He's like a Parker Kingston 2.0. You've got 2 kick returners that both returned kicks and or punts last year for touchdowns. So you've got the speed, you've got the agility on the outside, and then you've got the defense that's going to keep you in games. So regardless of how much Bear struggles, I think the defense is going to keep them in a game regardless. So this is a great situation for Bear. And when you look at past quarterbacks that were true freshmen coming in and starting, maybe not the first game of the year, but having significant time as a starting quarterback, you go down the list. I put this into ChatGPT 5.0 Pro, and it did some research for me. And I just had it return the top 25 quarterbacks. We don't have to go through all 25, but the top 25 quarterbacks in the last 25 years. Trevor Lawrence, number 1, Jalen Hurts, number 2, Jake Fromm, 3, Caleb Williams, 4, Deshaun Watson, 5. I think we're all familiar with those names.
It's a pretty dang good list right there.
It's a really good list. And I'm not saying that Bear is going to be those guys, but the whole point of this exercise, so Utah fans that are watching this, we're not comparing Bear to Trevor Lawrence. He's not there yet, right? We don't know how good he's going to be. The point of this exercise is to say there are freshman quarterbacks that have gone on to be Heisman winners, that have gone on to be NFL talent. And we've talked about Bear's size. We've talked about his ability to run the ball. We've talked about his ability we've seen his ability to pass the ball in practice. So he is not a scrub by any means. Like, we know he has NFL potential. Now the question is, because I think as a freshman quarterback, you rely a lot on just confidence and your ability to catch up to the speed of the game in a transition from a high school to a college level, because we've seen guys like Jake Heaps is the epitome of a guy who was really good in high school, had all the intangibles, had the size, looked really good in practice against Riley Nelson. And just when it came to field play, he didn't have the level of confidence that he needed to perform at an elite level in college. And that's not to say Jake's a bad quarterback. I just think there's an element of confidence, an element of like your mental preparedness that Jake didn't have. And I we haven't seen Bear play, but I think Bear, obviously went to Stanford. Like, I think he's got the mental fortitude to and then kind of the maturity to have that confidence in his ability. But as a true freshman quarterback, that's what you need. Isaac Wilson's another good example of this from Utah. Great out of high school, probably really good in practice. People thought he was going to be the next Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And he just struggled because he lacked the confidence. Now, granted, he was put in a situation that was not ideal for him. But I think at a true freshman stage in your college career, confidence is just as important, if not more important, than your ability to throw the ball, run the ball, and find open receivers.
Absolutely. And I think one thing you said is the schedule lends itself to him building confidence. The one thing that I haven't heard anybody else talk about that I think changes the game in freshman quarterbacks being able to look at, notice the right things, being able to be coached in game, is that last year the NCAA made the change where coaches can communicate directly into the quarterback's helmet, and that's got to change things. In the old days, you could not tell that freshman quarterback anything until the offense was off the field. And that's a whole different game than pre-snap. You're telling him, look for this. Remember, look for this. Hey, on the last play, they did this. Look for that again. Like, you've got to coach in that guy's helmet pre-snap. That changes things. While we're there, here, you know what else it changes?
This is why it's important, by the way. This is not just like a random tangent. Like, this is probably a good example of why we feel it's important that you can communicate directly with your quarterback.
Absolutely. Because it makes it so that there's a lot less miscommunication, and I want to take a shot at Utah real quick.
Yeah, do it.
Is that, look, if you guys saw the Michigan documentary on their sign stealer, it got a lot of things. They just got hammered with a big penalty. You know who else was accused multiple times of stealing signs? The Utah Utes. When asked about it, Kyle Whittingham would be very evasive. It wasn't actually even BYU that was accusing him. There's a lot of Pac-12 teams, specifically USC and others. But I find it very ironic that when all of a sudden they can't steal signs anymore, it's just getting communicated to the quarterback, that all of a sudden their defense did not look quite so hot. Their win-loss record, down in the tank. I think a big part of who Utah was one, the ability to steal signs, two, the ability to simulate the snap and get a lot of false starts and give their D an edge. Both those things got kind of really enforced last year, and you saw a whole different Utah.
Yeah. In addition to their quarterback being hurt, like, we're not saying that was the only reason Utah struggled, and I don't even know if you're necessarily claiming that Utah was cheating per se. I don't think there were rules against scouting signs that were presented by teams.
There were rules against it, but it just wasn't enforced. And
Sure.
How would you enforce it?
That's fair. And it's similar to like NIL now. It's like, how do you actually enforce that type of thing? Or tampering is the thing that was kind of brought up in the offseason. But
Yes.
it's something that everyone did. Nobody really enforced. And so Utah was really good at it. And, at least according to accusations being made, Utah was really good at it. And they won a lot of games probably because of it. And again, going back to this kind of Bear Bachmeier situation, it goes to show like how valuable it is to be able to communicate properly with your quarterback. And if a team is stealing that sign, then they're basically negating your ability to communicate with the quarterback, because they are, they're able to anticipate what the quarterback's going to do. So if you can privately and secretly talk to your quarterback through their helmet, it eliminates that ability to steal a sign and kind of neutralize your communication with your quarterback. And Bear's going to be a huge benefactor from this. Just to continue going down my list of top 25 real quick, I just want to name a few more. Robert Griffin III was number 7, Lamar Jackson 8. Then you got Josh Rosen, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Phillip Rivers, Matt Barkley, Jared Goff. Jaden Daniels is on there. It's funny, Keaton Slovis is on here, so former BYU guy, but obviously a freshman at USC. Zach Wilson's on this list as well, and granted, Zach didn't play a lot of his freshman year, start a lot of his freshman year at BYU. He came in, obviously, we know, during the Idaho Potato Bowl, and went 18 for 18 against Western Michigan, and that was kind of the launch of Zach Wilson's career. Brady Quinn kind of rounds out our list of top 25. In 2003. So again, we know that freshman quarterbacks can be successful at a P5 level and could eventually turn into Heisman caliber quarterbacks. Are we saying that's going to be Bear? No, but it does kind of go to show that freshman quarterbacks, when given the right tools and when having the right personnel around them, and when having a coaching staff that is showing confidence in them enough to kind of build their own confidence up, have shown to be successful, not only as freshmen, but throughout the rest of their career as well. And I'm hoping that we see the same out of Bear.
Love it.
That said, Fox Sports came out with their, it wasn't a top 25. It was actually one of their writers came out with, he basically ranked all 130, I think it's 136 teams. 136. RJ Young put out a list of his ranking 136 teams. BYU obviously on there because they're one of the 136. Where BYU was placed was the biggest head scratcher, and I think that's why we're talking about this. So just looking at kind of some notables here. He has Oklahoma at number 10. I don't think anyone has Oklahoma in the top 10 but him. He has Missouri at 15, so he's obviously very high on the SEC, as is everyone else. His top Big 12 school in his ranking is Kansas State at number 19. So then you go down the list of Big 12 schools, and you've got Texas Tech at 22, Arizona State at 23. I'm not going to disagree with that. I think I mentioned last week that I'm fine with Arizona State being the second or third best team in the conference. Yeah. I think that's probably more the case. Then he's got Colorado at 25, which is a huge head scratcher. Iowa State at 28, Houston at 31. Let's talk about that. What is he doing?
Yeah, it's too high, especially because we haven't said BYU yet. The other one is Arizona at 38. Like, I don't know what he's doing. Like, he doesn't know Big 12 football. RJ, if you're listening, I respect the effort. I respect the game. You were way off. I'll just say that on a lot of these, especially BYU. We haven't even got to that yet. But, man, like, I think he's just going big names and who had good recruiting classes 5 years ago.
Yeah, he put a methodology to this, and I appreciate him, trying, making the attempt at least to rank these teams. It's hard, right? It's hard to rank 136 teams because the reality is if you're a national guy, you're not watching games from 136 teams. You're not watching every game every year. That's why they only have a top 25, right? Yeah. They're not ranking 100. They're not ranking every team in college football. So for him to attempt this, I give him a little bit of credit, right? But this, it's just not. It's not conducive to. It makes you look dumb, to be honest. So his methodology is he's considering strength of schedule, continuity of coaching staff, all of which those two benefit BYU. Returning starters, I would say that benefits BYU outside of Jake Retzlaff. And if you want to weigh Jake Retzlaff higher than anyone else, then so be it. But if you're going to consider the caliber of returning starters, you got to look at Cam Scadaboo.
Yep.
When you're looking at Arizona State. Then he's looking at the 2025 recruiting class, transfer portal, athletic administration, star players, and expected household names. So like a Texas and an Alabama and Auburn, they're going to get kind of more of the benefit of the doubt. So that's kind of his formula. But I think when you look at all of that, there's no reason BYU should be ranked where they're at, which is number 60. So they're behind the five that we mentioned: Kansas, Arizona, TCU, Baylor, Utah, and Oklahoma State. They're only ahead of Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF in terms of Big 12 standing.
Silly. It's like, did he not watch 2024 football? Like,
yeah.
It's wild.
It's wild, and it makes you wonder, like, again, going back to the Jake Retzlaff situation, our media, because this isn't just a Fox Sports issue, right? Because we've seen this with other media members, including local media members. I think people are weighing the loss of Jake Retzlaff more than they really should. Now, again, I've said this many times. I'm team Jake Retzlaff. I was glad he was coming back. I was hopeful he would be the starting quarterback. I was hopeful he would stay healthy. I thought that the team was going to be really good with Jake at the helm. Now, do I think they're going to be really bad with him not at the helm? No. And I think that media members, whether national or local, writing off BYU and saying they're gonna be under 6.5 or 7.5 games, whatever their odds were, to me, you're overvaluing Jake in that case.
Absolutely. The legend of Jake, or what could have been with Jake, got built up to a place that wasn't reality. I watched the Colorado game again over the weekend, and he was bad. There's no other way to say it. I watched the Utah game again, and he had his moments, but he had some real bad things that they dropped a couple interceptions, Utah did, in the last few minutes that would have changed the whole narrative. It's about freaking time that we had those things go our way. But he's not this 10 out of 10 quarterback. I would give him a grade of 6.5 last year. Maybe this year, coming back again, he could have got that to a 7 or a 7.5.
Which would have been great. Again,
Correct.
Like I think BYU would have loved that.
Bear, though, I think Bear can be a 5 or above. And so it's not a huge loss that people are acting like it is. It's just an easy narrative. The thing when you take humans out of it and you just go to machines, I like the FPI on ESPN. Yes, it has some of its flaws. But the FPI last year, a look at all predictions, they were the second best at going against the spread of Vegas's spread out of any sort of predictive model. The FPI has some merit. The FPI has BYU with now people thinking it's Bear Bachmeier as the 22nd best team in college football. And that feels a lot more normal to me. And I would love to, we'll compare A.J. Young's Texas, I should call it the Texas one. A.J. Young's Fox Sports predictions against the FPIs. My money's on the FPIs, and they, I think, are valuing BYU at a fair spot at number 22 going into the season.
Yeah. You know what's great about this, too? We're going to have actual football to talk about in like 2 weeks.
I know.
We don't have to be talking about what-ifs and standings and rankings from national pundits. Like, we can actually start talking about football games.
We have Big 12 games this upcoming Saturday.
Love it.
So it's like, we're almost there.
Well, on our next show, like, we'll preview. I know we kind of already did an early season preview of Portland State, but we can actually start previewing real games the week before and start talking about personnel that BYU is actually going to have, like a Bear Bachmeier. This episode is brought to you by Aptiv. Aptiv believes that every home should be enjoyed. They tailor their pest control treatment plans to target pests when and where they're most active. Plus, if you see pest activity between treatments, Aptiv will return to take care of the problem at no additional cost. It's their way of making sure every customer is satisfied and every pest is controlled. If pests stay away, Aptiv is why. Visit AptivPestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Mention this promotion to get your initial treatment for just $29. That's AptivPestControl.com/loyalcougars or call 844-966-4787. Terms and conditions apply. Get home field advantage with Aptiv. Looking to get your brand in front of BYU's most engaged fans? The Loyal Cougars podcast and Cougar Board are your perfect match. Cougar Board is the largest online community of BYU fans with thousands of posts every day. The Loyal Cougars podcast is the official podcast of Cougar Board, and we have sponsorship opportunities available for both the podcast and the site. Contact us at sponsorships@loyalcougars.com. We'll help your message hit home with the Cougar faithful. Again, that's sponsorships@loyalcougars.com. We actually need to kind of wrap up our early previews. And so Cincinnati and UCF are going to be kind of a double dose here in this episode. And so Cincinnati, they were 5-7, 3-6 in the Big 12. They did beat Arizona State. It's wild that Arizona State had such a good record and lost to some pretty bad teams. But so they beat Arizona State. They did, however, lose to Colorado, West Virginia, and TCU. And they finished 0-5. In their last 5 games. Really bad end of the season for Cincinnati after a pretty decent start. So their win against Arizona State, by the way, was the only against a P5 school or a power school that finished with a winning record in the last 2 seasons. They went 5-15 against P5 opponents or power opponents, whatever we want to call them, in the last 2 years. So they've had a really tough 2-year stretch against Big 12 opponents ever since joining the Big 12. They have not made that adjustment. They've looked pretty terrible. That said, their scoring offense was probably the biggest reason why they were terrible in the Big 12, or have been terrible in the Big 12. They're 13th in scoring offense. Their defense also isn't creating a lot of turnovers, especially in the pass game. They've only got 5 interceptions last year. That was the worst in the Big 12. They did force and recover the second most fumbles in the conference last year. So the turnovers they did force were on the ground game, causing fumbles and not turning teams over via interception. So that's kind of a summary of Cincinnati last year. What do you notice, or what's kind of your take on Cincinnati?
First big pictures, I'm actually surprised they've struggled as much as they had. Like going into the Big 12, most people, myself included, thought that they were going to transition to Big 12 level much better than they have. They're in the state of Ohio. Great recruiting place. For the previous decade, they had been really good. They had been flirting with BCS and playoffs and top 25 every single year. So it's been really surprising that they've sucked and only have beat one P5 opponent in the last 2 seasons. They beat 5. One with a winning record.
Yeah.
Yes. To this year, though, what makes them a little scary is their quarterback is good.
Yeah.
Like his stats last year, 64% completions, an 18 touchdown to 7 interceptions ratio, 2,800 yards, solid stats that we would grab. Way better than Retzlaff's last year. He is coming back, and that does mean something. They are losing a lot, though. Their leading rusher, not coming back. Their leading receiver, not coming back. So They weren't good. They are losing some pieces. I think that they're going to be a middle of the Big 12 team. It's a game that we should be able to win.
Yeah. And again, my only hesitation is it's a road game. And that's always been the case for me, is I always hesitate against road opponents because BYU has traditionally struggled against road opponents. Now, last year, they did really well. So, have they gotten over that hurdle? Probably. That's my hope. But Cincinnati on the road could be tough. And Cincinnati fans seem to show out. I feel like the game. Now, granted, I've never been to a Cincinnati game, but I've seen a lot of, you've seen a lot of TV. They do a lot of these like coordinated color schemes and blackouts and all that stuff. And so, their fans are on board. And when you have a team with fans that get on board, it's really hard to win road games. But you're correct. They lose their quarterback, Corey Kiner. They return their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby. They do lose their running back, Corey Kiner. But Joe Royer is their returning tight end, and he's potentially an All-American tight end. So he's going to have, Sorsby's going to have a big target to throw to in Royer. And that said, he's one of two preseason all-conference players. He did beat out Travis Kelce for the tight end record with 50 catches last year.
You think Taylor Swift was just ticked about that?
If she was, she would have talked about it on their podcast this last week. So probably not. Did you watch that, by the way?
No.
I just watched the clips of it.
I know you watch every Taylor Swift podcast.
Hey man, don't give away all my secrets. Yeah, so Travis Kelce had, he owned the receiving record for tight ends at Cincinnati, and Joe Royer beat him out. So that gives you kind of an idea of how good Joe Royer is going to be. He's going to be Sorsby's number one target. Their defense is also anchored by Dante Corleone, who is another preseason all-conference player. They only have two. Cincinnati only has two preseason conference or all-conference players. And so that's kind of the expectation of Cincinnati this year, is that they're probably not going to run the ball very well. They're gonna rely a lot on their tight end for receptions, and they're gonna have to have a receiver step up and take over the receptions that Xavier Henderson leaves behind. So that's the expectation for Cincinnati. I think BYU wins if, and this is kind of your keys to the game. If you're looking at a how broadcasts do that, the keys to the game. BYU is going to win if they keep the crowd out of the game. I mentioned the crowd. If they keep Joe Royer in check, and that's, if you need to bracket him, you treat him like Brant Keithy, right? When Brant Keithy or Dalton Kincaid at Utah, you treat him like those guys. So keep him in check, and then you got to establish kind of this bend but don't break defense. And I know that's not Jay Hill's style, but Cincinnati was pretty good last year at moving the ball. They were okay at moving the ball. They were really bad at finishing drives and scoring in the end zone at the end of drives. And so does Jay Hill kind of rely on that method? Does he go like this Tuiaki route of bend, don't break? We're not going to blitz. We're just going to kind of create this umbrella and let them drive the ball but not score. I can't imagine Jay's going to do that, but you just got to keep him out of the end zone at the end of the day.
Yeah, my brain and the data would say BYU should be the winner of this game. The thing that scares me is that last year, I still have PTSD about the Big 12. It was just the opposite of what the data would show you. Every team going into the season that looked like they would be good, they were horrible. Every team that went into the season that everyone thought, oh, this is a bad team, that's who was winning and that's who was left at the end in the conference. And so anything can happen. They got P5 players now, multiple years in, but BYU should win this game.
Yeah, I think so. Last year, Arizona State was picked last. I think it was by media. Was it by coaches or by media?
It was by the media.
By media last year, and they ended up finishing first. I don't actually. I looked for a preseason Big 12 ranking for this year, and
they didn't put it out because last
year's
was so bad. They just said, "Hey, we're not doing one this year."
Yeah, we don't want to embarrass ourselves anymore. So yeah. But I think if there was one, then UCF and Houston would probably be two of the bottom teams, and Cincinnati would be probably third or fourth worst.
Yes.
So, the reason I mentioned you at UCF is because they are the last team on the schedule. So you've got kind of another situation where, similar to last year, where BYU played Houston at the end of the year, and I think we thought Houston would be a little bit better than they were last year. They ended up being one of the worst teams in the conference, and so this was kind of honestly, it felt like such a downer game because of the situation BYU was in. And I don't know if BYU players felt that way. Like they still seem to play, pretty elite, but I don't know if they were super interested in that game because there was really no result other than, maybe if they lost, they would have gotten a lower bowl opponent or a lower bowl selection. But anyway, that was kind of the Houston game last year. And the UCF game this year is going to be about the same, where you've got a pretty bad, at least projected, pretty bad team coming in. This is a UCF team that went 4-8 last year. They were 2-7 in Big 12. If you remember, they lost to BYU 37-24. What are your memories of that game? What do you take away from that game?
We had to fight and claw to win that game. Like that's what I actually thought, hey, we might have beat a decent UCF team because at the time I still thought they were better than they turned out to be. They had athletes. Like that's what me watching, I thought, man, they have really good athletes. They just do not play well together at all. It just seemed poorly coached, but they had a lot of speed and athleticism across the field.
Yeah. So RJ Harvey was who I remember from that game. Was 127 yards, 16 carries, 2 touchdowns against BYU. He was the only thing they really had going for them. If you remember, their quarterback was awful, like absolutely terrible. And they could not throw the ball. And I think BYU eventually realized, like, hey, if we get a lead here, we're going to make this team pretty one-dimensional. Basically the opposite of Colorado, where Colorado passes the ball every down.
Yeah.
If we can get ahead of the 8 ball against UCF and force them to pass the ball, they're not going to be able to keep up with us. And as good as RJ Harvey was throughout the whole game, they couldn't keep up with BYU because they couldn't pass the ball. That said, so they had the number 2 offense in the Big 12 behind Texas Tech, but only 9th in scoring. So again, another one of those
scoring's what matters.
Another one of those teams that drove the field and just couldn't punch it into the end zone. Again, because of RJ Harvey and other supporting cast, they had the top rushing offense in the conference, 5th in the country. So a really good running team. Granted, again, their quarterback ran the ball a lot. They were 5-14 against P5 teams in the last 2 seasons. So again, just like Cincinnati, they've been pretty bad in their transition from G5 to P5. And it's really showing this year. The other thing is, or last year, and the other thing is too, BYU's at home against UCF, and similar to Houston last year, I think it's going to be kind of a gimme game. The other thing, if you remember last year, BYU had that fake field goal. That was super. This was kind of the game that I remember BYU being fun to watch.
Yeah,
they pulled out all the stops. Chase Roberts had that long touchdown catch right before the half. They had the fake field goal. Jake actually had a pretty decent game, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 29-yard rushing touchdown. I think that was the first one of the game. Like, they actually looked really fun to watch that game is what I remember.
Yeah, but we could have lost that game. Like, that.
They were up 37-10, though. Or 31-10 or something. Yes, but in the first half, yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And then the Chase Roberts one, it was awesome and well timely, but I'm like, man, like, that was freaking huge, and it like broke their soul, Yeah. And even the fake field goal worked amazing. But I just remember thinking, again, they were fun to watch, and we just outcoached the crap out of that team. And they have a new coach coming in, though.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you look like you got outcoached all season.
New / returning.
Yes, big guy on campus, Scott Frost, who UCF has had some really good years. They went 13-0 one year. And Scott Frost was their coach. And so it is going to be a little bit tricky of a team going into the season to know who they have. I expect them to not be last in the Big 12. I think they have the players. If they can get it, they brought in some smarter coaches. Surely they're going to be better than last year. I don't think they're going to take this huge rise to where they're in the top 3 or 4 teams. But I think UCF is a sleeping giant in basketball and football that if they can find the right staff and then spark some donations and NIL and stuff, that they could be a real thing, and that we may see that this year.
I'd be surprised. And here's the other thing too is they're similar to BYU in the sense that they've got a 3-way quarterback battle going on right now, which includes a guy that played last year. The guy that struggled against BYU, Ja'Curry Brown, is part of this 3-way battle for quarterback. So you've got Cam Fancher from FAU, you've got Taven Jackson from Indiana, and then you've got Ja'Curry Brown, who was, again, 8 of 17, 2 interceptions against BYU, a terrible passing quarterback. I actually thought I remembered him being a better running quarterback last year against BYU. he wasn't. His stats don't show that. He was not much of a threat in the run game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was bad. He looked discombobulated the whole game.
Yeah. In fact, the guy that came in and backed him up was like Knight and Dylan Rizek. Do you remember Dylan Rizek came in, and granted, the pressure's off when you're down 31-10 or whatever. But he came in and he had provided a massive spark for UCF in the passing game when they needed it, and brought him back to within 2 scores. But he then transfers, right? So then he transfers. He's now competing for the starting job at Stanford. So it's all coming back around now, right? So Bear leaves. Wow. And
college football's crazy.
Dylan Rizek was competing for the starting job at Stanford. I think they actually just announced their starting quarterback, but for a while he was in the race. I think he's backing up another transfer from he's like a 6th-year senior from another school over at Stanford. So, but that was Dylan Rizek. I remember that from last year. Him providing that spark late. So. My take on this game is, again, I think if BYU shows up, if the fans show up to the game, it's a late November game. I think BYU wins going away. If you want to talk specifics, I think Scott Frost is going to have his offense ready. But if you can, again, just like Cincinnati, if you can make them one-dimensional, if you can force them to run the ball, if you can get ahead of the 8 ball and force them to run the ball, I think you're in a good spot. But this is one of those games where it's just a great. It's almost like a great way to end a season against a lesser team. Now, again, will they actually be lesser? Will Scott Frost turn that program around in one season? We have yet to see, but at least coming into this game. Speaking of Scott Frost, by the way, he doesn't have the golden touch per se. He's not a Midas, right?
He hasn't been good since he left UCF.
Yeah, exactly. So he was 6-7 his first season. Now, granted, after an 0-12 season. That's a good turnaround, having a 6-7, almost a bowl eligible. In fact, they did go to a bowl game that year, but 6-7, and then the very next year they went 13-0. That's what we talked about. They call themselves a national championship or champions after a 13-0 season. After that year, he goes to Nebraska. He's 4-8, 5-7, 3-5, 3-9, 1-2 before leaving Nebraska. Then he takes a hiatus, so then he's gone for like 2-3 years, and then comes back to UCF. So. Are we going to see 2016 and 17 Scott Frost, or are we going to see 2018 through 2022 Nebraska Scott Frost? That's going to determine how good this UCF team is this year.
Yeah, I think that Nebraska was a horrible place for him to go. They're getting the opposite type of athletes that UCF is, and the offense that he built that worked. So I'm not shocked that Nebraska sucked. But now UCF is going against a much higher quality of opponent week in and week out, and so it will. I love your key to the game. BYU wins if you got to hit them with that.
I put show up. That's literally what I said. I just put show. I believe that this is not a good team, and it's just one of those games, similar to a Portland State, Stanford, ECU. Like maybe not ECU because ECU's on the road, but. This is a team where BYU has superior talent. Now, if BYU has injuries coming into the game, then it changes the keys to the game. But I'm looking at it from a standpoint of right now BYU is healthy. They've got a lot of really good returning production. Bear Bachmeier is to me an NFL caliber quarterback. Now, granted, he's a freshman. We have yet to see how well he can actually play this year. But as it stands right now, I think BYU is the far superior team out of these two. So, yes, if they show up, I think BYU wins.
So, to me, there's a lot of BYU fans, too. I think fans in general. There's a subset of fans that like to kind of protect them mentally going into the year, that they just like to be anchored in pessimism.
That's kind of me, though, to be honest.
But not
an extent.
Not as far as the guy I was talking to yesterday. The guy I'm talking to yesterday, he's like, how many wins do you predict, Tosh? And I'm like, 8. I think BYU wins 8 games. And he's just shocked. Like, where are they going to get? Where are they going to get wins in the Big 12? And he's acting like there's none. We just talked on 2 today that these should be 2 wins. And there's more. There's more than that
way
in
more.
their season.
That's part of it, too. It's a byproduct of your schedule. You've got one of the easiest schedules in the conference and in the country. Let's do this real quick. Let's actually go through and count our wins, right? So now that we've done our early season previews, I'm going to go down the list. Portland State win number 1. Stanford win number 2. East Carolina win number 3. Colorado toss-up, okay? We'll give that 3.5. West Virginia at home, I think that's win number 4, 4.5. At Arizona, we'll say that's a toss-up, okay? We'll give that 5. Utah, I still think is a toss-up even though it's home. So we'll say 5.5. Iowa State's probably a loss. Texas Tech on the road, again, I think that's probably a loss. TCU at home, I think that's probably a win. So you're at 6.5. At Cincinnati, at UCF at Cincinnati, home against UCF should both be wins. You're at 8.5.
Yeah.
Wins.
Yep.
Without really even trying.
And you were not putting on the blue goggles on that.
No, that's me being pessimistic. Like, that's me trying to be realistic. Like, I don't think they beat Iowa State. I don't think they beat Texas. And I'm always concerned about Utah because it's the rivalry game. But that should be a win. Yes. And we've seen last year that BYU has looked really good against good teams like a Kansas State. They looked really good against Arizona State in the second half of the season, or half of the game. And so I think they could beat an Iowa State on the road. I think they could beat a Texas Tech on the road. But trying to be realistic about this, I'm going to, I'll draw those up as losses. But I think at Colorado should be a win. I think home against West Virginia should be a win. I think I said that was a win. I think at Arizona should be a win. And so, like, really, if I'm putting on blue goggles, I think, let's say 11-1, right? Let's say 11-1 is their ceiling. They beat Iowa State, they lose to Texas Tech. They could go 12-0, but I'm not going to say it. I think their floor is 8 when I look at the schedule.
Yeah.
Maybe 7, but probably 8.
I think we have to have some major injuries that get us below 7 or 8 games. Like, something real bad happened. And so, and again, I don't think that that's being crazy talk. So I think that the people that are being pessimistic, what you get is even Vegas has them at 6.5 wins. And I just look at it and I'm like, are they looking at the same thing I'm looking at?
It's the same Vegas that had them at 4.5 last year.
Correct.
4 or 5.5 last year.
They got to do whatever they can to get the Utah contingent to try to frequent their places. They're just trying to entice us down there.
Yes. And as Kalani loves to say and yell to his team, they don't know, but they're about to find out.
I love that.
And I hope that's the case for BYU this year, and I think it's going to be. Okay, Tosh, as always, thank you again for hopping on. I'm so excited to be talking about actual games starting next week.
Yep.
And looking forward to that. Thank you for listening again. We're nearing 800 subscribers and growing, and hopefully we can start growing during the regular season now. The off season's coming to an end, so if you like what you heard today, please like and subscribe, hit the bell to get notified on YouTube, head over to Spotify, head over to Apple Music, leave us a review. We're going to start talking about actual games, breaking down actual plays, hopefully putting up some highlights if YouTube allows us, because sometimes they don't. But we're going to start, breaking down actual, X's and O's and talking about all that stuff. So again, if you like what you heard, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified as we keep this thing growing. Until then, I'm Jake Edmonds. That's Tosh McIntosh. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. We'll see you next week.